Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a thriller from Denmark, Danish language English subs, released in the year 2019, directed by Gustav Muller, and this film is called The Guilty. So The Guilty is about a character named Asger. He was a police officer, but he's on disciplinary action, and so he's been relegated to that of a call dispatcher. Basically, people ring into the call centre, and he has to tell them whether or not they need an ambulance, and he has to tell the ambulance or the police where they have to go. And so this is basically his monotonous life right now, and it appears to be very boring until he gets one call from a woman who's clearly in a lot of stress, and that it soon becomes apparent that she's been kidnapped. And so Asger is trying desperately to keep her on the line, and the kidnapper is actually in the vicinity, and so she has to make it out that she's not talking to Asger. In fact, she's talking to one of her children, and so it's very tricky, but Asger is trying to get answers to the questions in order to try and pinpoint where she is. He can see her on the tracker, but unfortunately the tracker is a very general spot. He can't actually pinpoint where she is, and so he's trying his best in order to do this, but at the same time he's trying to fight his own demons as well, which really gets in the way and complicates matters as the overall plot starts to thicken. And so whether or not he can save this woman is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now, my thoughts on The Guilty. Naturally, I was very, very excited when I heard that this is a Nordic thriller, is that this is a movie that has a lot of hype, it has a lot of accolades, a lot of people actually love this film, and so being a Nordic film fan myself, I really hadn't heard about this movie, but I was just really keen to watch it. I was very impatient to watch the film, and so I was really hoping that it would match up to other Nordic thrillers. And so coming into the film, I had the expectation that it was going to really match up and was really going to blow me away. And I will say that this is a very creative thriller, and it's a very good thriller, but unfortunately there's one glaring problem that I thought prevented it from being the masterpiece that I really wanted it to. So overall, this is a movie that is very different. It is set in a call centre. It's basically one setting, and there's a very limited amount of characters that you can actually see, and there's other characters that you never see. And so you never see the situation unfolding. All you can get is the information that this terrified woman is giving you, and so that evolves inside your mind. It actually creates a lot of imagination. It forces the viewer to use their head, and that to me can be a lot more terrifying than actually seeing what's going on. This was very relevant in the horror film called Pontypool. Now, Pontypool, I thought for the first half of it was an absolute masterpiece until it gets very silly towards the end. But what made Pontypool very different was that that was a radio station, and the radio head was actually getting reports of carnage going on outside, and although you couldn't see it, it was still terrifying because of what you were hearing. And so it forces you to use your imagination, and that can be a very powerful thing, and I think The Guilty goes down that path, and it actually nails it. Now, it wouldn't be able to nail it if it wasn't for the absolutely fantastic script that this film has. And so it's a very, very difficult thing to create something that's thrilling and on the edge of your seat with just using words and just hearing what was on the other line. I think it takes a very talented script, a writer, and also a very talented director to actually maintain that interest. And the interest is not only through the situation that is unfolding on the other line, but it's also the evolution of this main character of Asger. He has personal demons of his own, and so as the situation starts to progress, so too does this character. And I thought, all right, well, there's a bigger picture here, and that bigger picture prevents this movie from ever getting boring. The movie gives you clues as to the background of Asger, but that never takes center stage. Ultimately, this film wants to be a thriller, and the thrilling aspect of the situation unfolding always plays center stage, but very intelligently it actually gives a little bit more of Asger. So you're actually getting a little bit more than just a standard thriller, which, as I said, evolves the story and it prevents it from being dull or repetitive. And so there are a few breadcrumb clues where you actually follow the breadcrumbs and it all makes sense at the end. And so I thought script-wise it was absolutely phenomenal, and I thought I was very surprised at how thrilling this film actually was. It was extremely suspenseful, whether it's the characters or the actors, the way that Asger, the guy who plays Asger, the way that he reacts to hearing certain things. I thought there's a lot of emotion put into it, and just a silence, whether he's thinking about something or he's shocked with something, I thought that silence has you on the knife edge as well. And so I thought the overall tense environment was very claustrophobic because it was taking place in this call centre. Asger wanted to go out and help and actually get this woman, but he couldn't. And so it was a frustration of not being able to save her himself, and so he had to rely on basically relaying messages to other people, and so the whole situation was out of his control. Therefore the situation's out of the viewer's control, and you're left on a knife's edge wondering what is going to happen next. And so it was a very tense. The cinematography is very bleak, as I said, it takes place at night, so there's no vibrant colouring, so you know you're into something that's going to be very morbid. They're very morbid themes that is depicted in this film, and they're actually quite shocking scenes as well. And as I said, without visual being able to tell you visually what that shocking thing was, it's using your imagination. It's creating that monster inside your head that I think is far more terrifying than what you see visually. And so this is a movie that is very reminiscent of films such as Pontypool, and was also reminiscent of Phone Booth, not in the fact that you couldn't see exactly what you could see a lot more in Phone Booth, but it was still that idea of being completely helpless to the situation. And so if you like that kind of film, then I definitely think The Guilty is one to check out. It is very different, and I thought it was expertly handled, all except one glaring problem. And that glaring problem was the generic sort of formula in the way that the movie progresses as far as its story is concerned. Now what I mean by that is that there's a certain situation that happens in the last quarter of the film where I thought to myself, you have to have a suspension of disbelief. Is because if they acted smartly, then this movie would have been over well before the finish. And so obviously these things are happening for the progression of the film. And I thought that the director could have gone down a different route and it would have been a lot better. And so you're not left scratching your head thinking, well, if you did this earlier, the situation wouldn't have spiraled out of control. But then you say to yourself, it's obvious because the director didn't know exactly how to carry the film to actually evolve it and snowball it into that big shocking climax that the film is going to have at the end. And so I thought, all right, well, that was a glaring problem that prevents it from being a masterpiece, is because it does have a generic sort of trope and formula, the way it structures the evolution of the film. But yeah, pushing that aside, it's not a major problem because, as I said, it is a very thrilling film. If you can make allowances for a few plot holes and a few things that are obviously there because the movie didn't want to be a short film, then I definitely think you're going to enjoy The Guilty. It's another Nordic crime thriller that is very, very impressive. And so if it sounds like your kind of thing, go out there and see it. I'm going to give The Guilty 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies and I'll see you later. Bye.